Drilling an aquarium can be one of the most daunting tasks that face a new fish keeper setting up their fish room. I purchased this 40-gallon breeder aquarium from the Petco $1 per gallon sale, and today we're going to go ahead and put a hole in it, paint the back and sides black, and install a bulkhead. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Before we get started drilling the tank, there are a few things we do need to keep in mind. What I'm going to show you here is the process to drill a glass tank. If you do own an acrylic tank, that is a different process. Also, you need to make sure we're not dealing with a tank with tempered glass. A lot of tanks will have signs on the tank where it says tempered, do not drill. Definitely make sure to take a look at your tank to make sure you don't have tempered glass. The common tank sizes that I've seen with tempered glass are the bottom panels of 40 breeders, the long panels of 55 gallons. This can vary from tank to tank and can vary by manufacturer. So definitely make sure to do your research. If at any point you're unsure, go ahead and contact your local fish store and they'll be sure to recommend someone who can drill the tank for you. And also, if this is your first time doing it, I would highly recommend getting a scrap piece of glass and actually practicing it a few times before you drill your tank. That's how I learned, and it definitely gave me a lot more confidence going into drilling my first tank. So let's go ahead and get started here with drilling the tank. First thing you're going to need is a diamond coated hole saw. You'll want to select a size that's slightly larger than the bulkhead you're working with. The next thing you're going to need is a jig. This jig I did make out of just a piece of wood. This isn't exactly the same size as your hole, but it is close enough. And then you're also going to need a water source to keep your drill bit cool. A clamp, which you can use to hold your jig in place. And finally, you're going to need your favorite drill of choice. So let's go ahead and arm our drill with the drill bit and also put on our PPE, which in this case, I think I would just maybe wear a pair of safety goggles and maybe some gloves if you feel the need to. And let's go ahead and get started drilling the tank. Let me go ahead here and show you how to start your drill bit using a separate piece of glass. You're just going to want to hold your drill at an angle and then slowly work it forward to make your hole. So we are shooting this on a separate piece of glass just so that you guys can see it. Just keep turning it, and now that you've got it vertical, and you've got a nice little groove for your hole. We've now lightly clamped our form onto the tank, and we've started drilling. If you notice, we have filled the form with water to keep our drill bit cool. You will see some leakage out of the form, which is completely normal. And then also you'll notice the white dust in the water, and that is the glass that you're drilling out of the tank. As we're going ahead and drilling here, I do want to talk about a couple keys to this. First of all, you really don't want to put a lot of pressure on the drill. You really just want to put enough pressure on the drill so you get the grinding action going, but not push too hard to break the glass. It's really kind of an element of touch that, once you figure it out, you kind of get how hard to press and how not hard to press. And this gets even more important as you're drilling smaller tanks like 10 gallons, because the slightest bit of pressure, you can go ahead and crack the glass and ruin your tank. The other thing I do want to talk about in this is not a cutting action. This is actually a grinding action. You're not cutting the glass, you're actually grinding a hole in the glass. So with that being said, the name of the game here is patience. So, it may take longer than if you were drilling a piece of wood, for example. But this is a different sort of action. You're not, cutting it. You're just going to grind this hole out slowly but surely until you get to the end. So let's go ahead here and speed it up for you, and we'll come back once we get to the end. We are now getting towards the end, and what you'll find at the end is you'll start seeing some of the water leaking through as you're cutting. At this point, you really do want to slow your speed down, and also make sure you're applying light pressure, if any pressure at all, and just let the tool do the work. And then just complete your hole. A lot of times once the hole is completed, your drill will actually catch, and the piece of glass will fall to the bottom of the tank. So let's go ahead and clean up the water. So I like to use my aquarium co-op towel for that. Just get all of the water off of it. So while we're waiting for the rest of the water to dry, let's go ahead and talk about bulkheads. So there are two types of bulkheads, so you do need to be cognizant of what you're buying. One is called a slip, which means you just put your piece of plumbing into the bulkhead and glue it with PVC glue. And the other type is threaded, where you actually need to get a threaded plumbing fitting to go with the bulkhead. It's really a matter of personal preference, but I prefer the slip style of bulkhead. Bulkheads consist of three parts. There's a gasket, which goes on the front of the bulkhead. There's the actual plastic bulkhead itself. There's the nut that goes onto the back of the bulkhead. So to install it, you would put the gasket on first and make sure it's flush against the front of the bulkhead. And then you slide that part on the inside of your tank. And then you just fasten the nut on the other side. I generally like to fasten it hand tight. You may want to do a quarter turn with a wrench, depending on how tight it feels. But that's basically how you install the bulkhead. Now here it is installed on our tank and all ready for plumbing. Now that our tank is dry, let's go ahead and paint. I've played around with a bunch of different methods to paint tanks, from oil-based paints, Plasti-Dip, and many things in between. What I currently like to use is this Krylon Color Max, which you can get from Lowe's. Costs about 10 bucks or so, and I found it to work pretty well. So let's go ahead and start painting. I like to use the cheap chip brushes that you can get from your local hardware store for about $1.50 or so. And then I just do nice long strokes, just making sure I get very even coverage, and I do put it on pretty thick. So let's go ahead and finish up painting the sides and the back. So we now have it all completed. I'll probably go back and do a second coat just to cover up any spots that I missed. But I'd say all in all, this looks like a success, and we'll go ahead and get this put up in the fish room and get it going. Well, we've got our new tank put up on the stand now. We've got the bulkhead installed, the plumbing installed, so we're all ready for substrate, water, and fish.